All right, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to be looking at plate 4. Now, with plate 4, we've got a lot of things that we are going to be doing for this drawing. Now, the first thing it's called is a pulley. And what a pulley is used for is transferring mechanical advantage from one device to another device and possibly speeding a device up or slowing a device down. One of the easiest things that I can think of that would be a very common um, device that you would see it being used on would be a bicycle. Okay. Now, instead of this pulley being smooth on the outside, a bicycle has teeth going all the way around. And instead of being called a pulley, they call it a sprocket. Same idea, it just uses a different material. Now, you'll notice in the middle here, there is a circular hole. That circular hole would be where the pulley would fit onto something called a shaft. The shaft is nothing more than a round either input or output for the device. Okay. And what I mean by that is that um, think of a electric motor or a gasoline engine, and this pulley fits onto the output of that motor or that engine and will spin. And on the receiving side, somewhere over here, somewhere, there'll be another pulley. Could be larger, could be smaller, could be the same size as this. And what it will do is it will take and transfer whatever power, because there would be something that connect these two together, like a belt or a chain or something, and it will transfer the power to whatever the device would be. In the case of a bicycle, well, your pedals would hook up to this pulley, and back here, the other pulley or sprocket would hook up to a bicycle wheel. Okay. And in order to get it so that your um, power is transferred from the pulley or from the motor to the pulley or from the pulley to the shaft, we use something called a keyway. And a keyway is nothing more than a square piece of steel that fits between the pulley and your shaft. And your shaft would actually have a half of a square, just like this here, just mirror image. So it would go down, over, and back up. And then you could fit a piece of what they call square key or key stock in there. And that's what mechanically locks the two devices together to keep them from rotating. Okay. So that's a quick and dirty of what a pulley does. Now, looking at this drawing itself, we have got obviously the pulley itself. We've got some circles we've got to draw. We've got to draw some straight lines in here. We've got to do something right here. These are called fillets. Okay, if you want to get real fancy about it, you can call it a fillet. Okay. Now, a fillet is nothing more than taking two intersecting lines and fitting a curve in there to smooth out the edge and give the object more strength and reduce the stress. Okay, there's nothing worse than having a sharp corner on something, because what you can get is you can get stress fractures and stress cracking. Whereas because of these two objects coming to a sharp point. Now, if they're in a curve, just like you see here, what ends up happening is your stress loads now are exerted over a further distance than just that single point where those two objects converge at. So you reduce the stress, right? Now, looking at the object, we've got dimensions. We've got these red lines. These red lines are called center lines. These green lines right here and here are called extension lines. Then we have the arrows, which are called dimension lines. And then we have the dimension itself. So we're going to be actually drawing all these. And I'll show you a real easy way that we're going to let AutoCAD do all the legwork for us. And then last thing we got to do is we've got to go ahead and put in a piece of text here. Okay. Obviously, we have to set up our title block. Okay. But the last thing that I want to mention to you guys before we actually start working on the drawing is if you look here, notice how these objects are in green. Notice how this object is in black, in red. And notice how my drawing itself is in black. Each one of these colors denotes a different layer that was drawn on top of this object. Okay. So think of it this way. See this light gray layer? Think of that as being your bottom sheet of paper. You drew your title block on it. You then take an absolutely clear piece of paper and you lay it on top. And now you've gone ahead and you've put all of your text. You lay another piece of clear paper on top of it, and then you draw your object. Take another piece of clear paper, then you draw your red center lines in. Take another clear piece of paper, and then you can put all your dimensions on there. And what that is that just simply allows us to take a very busy looking drawing and very easily clean it up if we ever needed to. And I'll show you guys an easy way of doing that later on using something called layers. So let's get over to our drawing space here. I'm going to click here. And there's a couple things that I want to do to clean up our drawing area. And I want to make it so that it's easier for us to work on, especially if we have a small screen. What I'm going to do first is I'm going to take my command prompt. I'm going to grab on this little grippy rectangle right here. Left click hold. I'm going to slide it over to the side here. That way I have more room to see my object. Now I've got this crazy thing up here in the corner. I can click here and I can see that it's called a view cube. All right, so we're going to do something with this view cube. Now, in my honest opinion, the view cube is completely 100% useless for what we are doing in two-dimensional drawings. It has its place in three-dimensional drawings, but we're going to go ahead and we're going to get rid of this because it's just taking up space that we could use, precious space that we could use. So I'm going to type in the following. View. Okay. Cube. And as soon as I type in view cube, do you see what comes up? Display view cube in 2D. We're working in two-dimensional drawings. We're not working in three-dimensional drawings. So go ahead and click on this display view cube in 2D. It's going to ask you, enter new value for the display cube. Currently, its default is on. We want to turn it off. So go ahead and type in off. And you will see right there that we now have cleaned up our screen a little bit. We can also come over here. We got this toolbar over here. I don't want this. Okay, maybe I would use it for pan. Okay, there are a couple things that we can use here, but there's not a lot that we can really use. So we're just going to get rid of it. Okay, if you wanted to keep it, you could always take and slide it over. Okay, but I don't want it. So I'm just going to click that little X there. So now take a look what I have. I have a big drawing area that I can work on. I'm going to do my zoom extents, which was just a simple double click of my mouse. And I'm going to do the following. I'm going to come up to my A. I'm going to go save as. Change it from documents to my 900 drive. I'm going to pick my way that I want to store my file. Remember, 9 is my fictitious class number, last name underscore first name. Change this to drawing number 4. And hit save. And now I'm going to go ahead and turn on my autosave. So it's WSAUTO SAVE 1 enter. Simple as that. So now I've got my autosave working, so that way if anything happens, I've got a backup plan. Okay. So I'm going to come in here. I'm going to go into the line command to start with, and I'm going to find my center of my area. Okay. So I've just drawn a line from here to here, left click, enter. And what I want to do is I want to start by creating some circles. I'm going to come up here and I'm going to go to circle. And you're going to notice, oh shoot, I don't have the ability to find the middle of this line again. Now, there are some things I can do, and I'm not going to get into them too much this time, but we're going to type in a command called mid, M-I-D. That's going to show me the midpoint for this object. Oh. We're working? There we go. All right, so I'm going to click there. Now let's take a look at one of our dimensions. You're going to notice that most of these dimensions are diameters. Okay, so if you see a circle with a line in it, that means it's diameter. If you see an R, that means it's radius. So let's take a look at what our largest diameter is first. Just kind of looking. Here's our outermost circle, arrows pointing to it. Notice our arrows pointing directly to the center of our circle. That is correct dimensioning. So I'm going to go with typing in the following. D, enter, 5.4, enter. You're also going to notice something a little different with this drawing. It's not fractional numbers. Now it's decimal numbers. This is what you will normally see in an engineering type of situation. You will see this fractional, or excuse me, you will not normally see fractional numbers because they're not, they don't have enough depth to them or resolution, as they would say. So you can, there's too much wiggle room in there. So what they use is they use the decimal system, and they generally go out to the thousandths place. Sometimes they go out to 10,000ths place, depending on how precise you want to go. And I believe that is called a micron when they go out to the 10,000ths of a place. I have a friend that works at General Motors, and he always says that they no longer measure to the thousandths, they measure to the micron. So he works in the machine shop side of things where they build tooling for the engines, and they are very precise with what they do. So a micron is super, super small. All right. So we're going to go ahead and we're going to just draw in thousandths because honestly, for us, if we drew it in the microns, we'd never be able to tell the difference. Now, we've gone ahead and we've drawn this first circle. We're going to go ahead and we're going to draw another circle. How do I get into the circle command again? I'm going to hit the space bar. I'm going to find the center. Now, I could type in mid, M-I-D again, or I can just find the circle, and notice it gives me the center point of it. So I'm just going to go ahead and click there. I always want to make sure I'm sharing the exact same center point again. All right, so I'm going to type in D, enter, 4.860. I really don't need to put the 0 on the end of it. I'm just doing it since that's what it shows here. Spacebar again. Find the center. Find my next number. Okay, I'm looking here, looking. We've got this radius. Let's go ahead and type in this radius. Again, you don't need to type in R. You can just type in the number. 1.013. Spacebar again. Find the center. Type in the following distance. D. 1.688. Enter. And then the last one is going to be this radius in the middle. Spacebar again. Find the center. And we're going to type in 0.506. Enter. Now, we have all the circles for this object. Well, that wasn't too bad. I'll take this line. I no longer need it, so I'm going to select it and delete it. I'll go ahead and draw a line now. Nice long line, just like that. Go ahead and repeat the line again. Right here. I'm going to just slide down using that guideline, as they're called. use that guideline, and then I'm just going to draw it upwards. Nothing too fancy, just creating some lines for myself, okay? Now, I'm going to use these lines later on for changing them over to these red lines here, and I'll explain that to you later on, but we're not going to get into that right now. What we want to do is we want to start creating this part of the object and this part of the object. Let's take a look at our dimensions. First thing that we're going to see is we've got something that goes from the center line outward, and it's got this number to it, 0.270. We also have a dimension that goes from this edge here to this edge here. And this number here doesn't really help us to start, but it does give us clarity as to how wide this object is after we create this offset. Sometimes you will have these pegs where they're not perfectly balanced. Maybe they are offset a little bit. Maybe this one's up a little bit. Maybe this one's down a little bit. All right. So we always got to use the dimensions when we can to help us. So what we're going to do is we're going to come up to the modify, offset, 0.270. Okay. I'm going to select this object. I'm going to offset it up. I'm going to offset it down. Take this one here, offset it over, offset it over. All right. Now, I'm going to go ahead and hit enter. Now let's take a look at this object. If you look at the center of this object, you will notice that this line here stops. It does not cut into the circle here. So we have to do a little bit of forward thinking. One of the things that AutoCAD likes to do is when we go into commands, if it can trim and clean up lines, it will do that. But sometimes it makes it more work for us. So we have to be a little bit on the proactive side and think ahead of what AutoCAD is trying to do for us. So in this case, what I'm going to do is I'm going to use the trim command, and I want to pick this boundary circle right here as the furthest most point that my circles are going to be in, okay? And that happens to be this circle right here. So I'm just going to select that circle, and then I'm going to type in the following command, TRI. Take a look, trim comes up, so I'm going to select trim. I'm going to select the circle that I've already selected. I want to make sure it's highlighted blue. Right click, enter. Let's see here. I think I screwed up. Trim, select that line, right click, enter. Trim, right click. There we go. All right. So on another, I was like double clicking here in there. So now I'm just going to pick the lines that I don't want anymore. Okay. I'm going to leave this middle line here because we're going to use it. Okay. We just kind of have to think outside of the box and think 2 steps ahead of what AutoCAD's doing. And it's tough because guess what, guys? You don't know what AutoCAD's doing. You're just learning this. That's why I'm here trying to explain it to you. Now I've got this done. So the next thing that I need to do is I need to get it so that I have a fillet. Now, I want to show you something here. Let's go ahead and try doing the following command. We're going to go ahead and if we go under modify, we have the fillet command. I could also type in fillet. So either one. So let's go ahead and type it. F-I-L-L. And notice fillet comes up. I'm going to click on that. It's going to say first object or, and it gives me choices. Radius is going to be something that we need to look at because it's defaulting to 1/2 of an inch. Now, we need to look at any nomenclatures or any information that might be on this drawing saying, hey, what size are those radiuses? Or what size are those fillets? See anything that says anything about maybe fillets and saying what size they might be? Oh, perfect. Good. Yes, right here. lower left-hand corner, okay? You'll see these little notations sometimes on drawings. All fillets, radius 0.60. So what we're going to do is we're going to click on the radius, or we can hit R, 0.6, enter. And then I'm going to come in here and I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to select a couple of lines. I'm going to pick this line first. And I want it to radius. Ooh, look at that. It's actually giving me a preview of what it would do if I clicked on this next line. I don't want that. I want the preview going to this circle here. All right. So that's good. So it did that for us. Now I'm going to go ahead and hit spacebar again. I'm going to click on this circle here. I'm going to click on this circle here. Look at that. So now I've created that and I've created that. Let's try another one. Spacebar again. This, spacebar. This, and this. Now, I will tell you this. For some people, it will keep you in the fillet command. For most people, it will kick us out of the fillet command each time we are done with doing a fillet. There's nothing wrong with it keeping you in the fillet command. That's actually nice if it can do that for you. All right. There's a way that we can turn it on, but I'm not going to get into that right now. I'm just trying to get you guys so that you actually understand how to use the software. I'm going to hit space again. I'm just going to continue on with doing my fillets. So it's not that big of a deal. And the nice thing is, it doesn't matter where we click on these lines, so long as it's the lines that we want to fit these fillets into, AutoCAD will automatically figure it all out for us. If we were doing this by hand drawing, it's a little complicated. I'll be honest with you. All right, oops, I don't want that. I want cancel. So there's a little bit of work that we have to do for figuring out fillets when we do it by hand. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go back into the trim command. So T, enter. And this time, what I want to do is I want to pick everything in the drawing as a boundary. So I'm going to go ahead and right click once. And now, let's try that again. Lost my command. Go back in here. Trim. I'm going to right click. Now, once I've right clicked, you'll notice that it says select object to trim or shift to extend. So I'm going to come in here and now anything I've select, it will trim. So I'm just going to pick all these little lines here. Okay. Perfect. You have to be careful because if you hover over something, see how it puts that little red X on there? It'll delete it. Once you're done, go ahead and hit the space bar. That gets you out of the command. So now let's take a look at the object. This object looks very close to this object. There's only one other thing that we got to do. We got to put this little keyway in. And it gives us some information as to how wide the keyway is. And it also gives us the overall height. Here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to come in here and I'm going to go line from here over. I don't care how long it is. And then I'm going to draw a line going straight up. I'm going to type in the distance, 1.101. Enter. And then I'm going to come zipping back. Okay. Now, I did a boo-boo. I went from the wrong line. Well, your first instinct would be to delete everything. I'm not going to. I'm going to just simply select everything. And how am I going to select everything? First thing I do is I left click one time. Somewhere over near the area that I want to select stuff. And you'll notice if I go to the right, see how I get this blue box? Anything that is fully inside of the blue box, notice how there's this piece right here that gets highlighted. Anything that's fully inside of it, it will select it. But it will not select anything that's partial. If I go the opposite way, notice it turns into a green box. Anything that touches the box will now become selected. So I'm going to do that. Left click. And now I'm going to type in the following command. M-O-V-E. Move. Select the line that I want to move. And I want to just bring it up one little circle. So I had it accidentally drawn down here. I want to move it up here. So now I'm going to go ahead and zoom in. All right. And I'm going to figure out how wide this keyway is. Now it says that it's 0.169. So I don't really know what half of 0.169 is. I can come down here and pull up the calculator and do that. But I've got a much easier way to do it. I'm going to go into the circle command. Come over here to this intersection. I want to do it right here. And then I'm going to type in D, enter 0.169, enter. Now I have the exact width of my keyway just by that circle right there. Wherever it intersects this other circle, I know that's how wide it's going to be. So I'm going to do this. I'm going to draw a line from this intersection point straight up. I don't care if it's too long. Right click, enter, right click, repeat line, or the space bar, whichever one you got to do. Straight up, right click, enter. I don't need this circle anymore, so let's just get rid of it. Extra information that we don't need. Now, I'm going to come into modify, trim. All right. And let's go back to the old school way. I'm going to select this object here, this object here, this object here, this line here, this line here. So I got all those things selected. Probably don't need that line there, so I can hold the shift key and I can select it, I believe. No, it's not going to let me do it. Doesn't really matter. And then I'm going to go ahead and right click. Now I'm going to select on the pieces that I want to get rid of. I don't want to get rid of that circle. Just want to get rid of the lines that are in here. And make sure that you go in the order that I went in. I'm starting at the outside most line. And then coming into the next one. And then I'm going to do this line here. This line here. This line here. This line here. And this line in there. Okay, right click. Enter, get myself out of it. Now, why did I pick those lines out there? So that I didn't have to come back and delete those later on. Now, yes, I can delete these two lines here. And let's do a double click to zoom all. Let's take a look at the objects and compare them. Do they look the same? Got a circle, keyway, circle, keyway. I have another circle outside of it. I have another circle outside that. Yes. I've got these funky little rectangular things. Funky little rectangular things. That's good. Another circle, and then an outer circle. Perfect. Now, one of the rules that we've talked about before, a long time ago, is that when we do dimensioning, a dimension generally does not exceed past 1/8 of an inch from its object. So when I'm talking about here are going to be our center lines. We don't want those to really extend past our object too far. And we want them so that they're equal in distance. So here's what we're going to do. I'm going to take this circle here. Come under modify, offset. And I'm going to type in the distance of 1/8. 1/8. Okay, see that? Oops, I typed in star. I get for not looking at my keyboard. 1/8, the /, just so you know. And then I'm going to take this circle and I'm going to offset it outward that distance. Right click, enter, modify, trim. Select this object as my boundary, right click, select these lines here. Now, somebody's going to ask me, well, couldn't I have just shrank or stretched those lines so that they would be approximately that distance? The answer is yes, you could, but you're not doing it correctly because your shrinking and stretching is not precise. It's only there to get you approximately. Okay? So that's why we do it the way we do it. Now, how do we get this object so that it is red? Here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to select it, select this, and then I'm going to come up to this Layers tab. And if we look here, do you see how we get this icon right here? And it says it's the following icons. Let me break these down for you. The light bulb. This means it can be seen, or if you click on it, okay, you can turn the light bulb off. And if you turn the light bulb off, it's just like you were in the dark. Okay. You then have the sun. This is something called freeze and thaw. Now, what freeze and thaw is simply a ability to be able to draw on a layer or turn the layer so that it's not able to be drawn on. You can kind of select what you want to be drawn on, what you don't want to be drawn on. The lock feature, this padlock right here, basically does the same thing, just is a little bit more advanced. The next one over here, this is your color. This is what color the layer is going to be. And then the last thing is going to be what the layer name is. In this case, it's just called layer 0. What I'm going to do is I'm going to click the little turn down next to it. And I'm going to look and I'm going to see, hey, you know what? I don't have anything for that red layer. So we're going to go ahead and create that red layer. The way that we're going to do that is by the following. This little button that says layer properties, I can click on that. And there's this little icon here. I call it the 3 sheets to the wind. Okay. But somebody lit it on fire. I'm going to click on this fiery 3 sheets to the wind. And that's create new layer. So I'm going to call it the following. CENTER. I'm going to come over here. I'm going to change its color from white to red. I hit OK. And then I'm going to come over here to the line type. And I'm going to change it from a continuously straight line into something called a center line. So let's go ahead and see if we can click on this continuous. And notice we only have a hidden line sitting here and a solid line. Well, that's a problem. What we need to do is we click on this load button. And then we scroll through and we find something called center. Now don't worry about this half scale center and this double size scaled center. We're just going to use the regular old center. I'm going to hit OK. And then the last thing you have to do, which is kind of silly, is you actually have to select center and click OK. So now that we've got that, we have our center layer highlighted. Okay. I can go up here and I can click on the close button. I come over to layers again, change my layer, my center layer, right? And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to select this line here, back up. Notice that they are sitting on the 0 layer. I want them to be on the center layer. So I'm going to just simply click them over to the center layer. Pretty cool. I'm gonna hit escape. All right. So these look pretty good. Now, there's a little bit of difference. I've got this little crosshair in the middle. Okay, but we're not going to worry about that for this. We're just going to get it so that it looks pretty good. And I think that looks pretty good. So now, the next thing that we need to do is we need to do a hard save because we've done a lot of hard work. Let's go up here and hit save. All right. Now that we've saved our object, the next thing that we're going to do is we're going to go through and start doing our dimensions. Now, in order to do dimensions, we have to do a couple things. First, we need to change our layer because right now we are currently on the red layer or the center layer. We don't want to be on that. We're going to come up here, layer, change this, the dimension layer. All right. Now, the next thing that we're going to do is we're going to start with dimensioning. But before we do that, why don't we make sure that we have everything correct up to this point? Now, I don't want you going through and modifying anything because if you start modifying text, you could possibly put it on the wrong layer. And I don't want you doing that. But just do a final check, make sure everything looks right for you. So what we're going to do is the next thing we're going to do is we're going to start putting our dimensions in. So we're going to come up here to annotate. And then we have this dimension. This is called quick dimension. I'm going to click on quick dimension. And then we are going to start to dimension some objects. So all I'm going to do is I'm just going to click on them. But take a look here. We've got a big problem. Notice our number is in fraction. We don't want fraction. We want decimal. So I'm going to hit the escape key because that's not going to work for us. So I'm going to go into a command and it's going to be called dimstyle. Dim style. That's the first thing that comes up. I'm going to hit enter. Now this menu is going to come up. I'm going to click on modify. We can do a lot of powerful things in here, but we got to be very careful with what we do. We're going to go under here to primary units. We're going to change it from fractional to decimal. And we're going to change the precision down so it's 3 zeros, thousandths. We're going to come in here to text. Change the text height from 3/16. All of our text is 1/8. We're going to leave everything else the same. Go ahead and click OK. Set current. And close. Now let's try the annotate again. Come over here. Select on this. Take a look. Now we have 5.4. Now here's a cool thing. I could put the dimensions anywhere I wanted on this drawing. But here's the thing. I don't want you to get confused. So try to put them in a similar place to where you originally found them. Okay, so I'm going to put that one right there. Now, take a look here. Yeah, we got the crosshair showing up. All right, we're going to go ahead and we're going to go back and I'm going to hit escape. I don't want that crosshair. I'm going to go ahead and hit escape. I'm going to select this. I'm going to delete it. And what we're going to do is we're going to go back into that dim style one last time. And I'm going to change something. I'm going to go modify. And I'm going to go under symbols and arrows. And under center marks, I'm going to turn it to none. Now, I could turn it to, take a look at this icon right here. If I had mark, see it just shows a little crosshair in the middle. I can go line. Yeah, it makes it a line there. Okay. I'm going to just select none for this. Just makes it a little easier. Go ahead, hit set current and close. Now let's try that one last time. Dimension, Okay, selected my object. Try to get it so that our dimensions on the outside of our object. All right. And notice it will place it anywhere on the circle. I'll place it right about there. It's not too close to the border, but it's not on the wrong side of the object. I'm going to select another one here, which is going to be this circle right here. All right, I'm going to stretch it out. And I'm going to go ahead and place it similar spot to where the other one is. Okay. I don't know what this is doing here. I like that. I don't know why it's doing that at all. So let's go ahead and delete that. Let's try to go back into annotate again. I don't know if maybe I click something here. Oh, that's kind of weird. All right. So there's that. I must have double clicked or something. Let's take a look at another one here. We got radius here. And then, oh, I see what it did. See how it's trying to do it. See how it's trying to do this here. We don't want that. I'm going to go ahead and enter. And then hit spacebar again. I'm going to try to pick this circle right here. Okay. Now see how it's I had to zoom in real close to get it. Sometimes you have to do that. Go ahead, click. Remember, I can stretch it out if I need to. And I'm going to place it. I'm going to look here. I got a couple more. I've got this one right here. Go ahead, place it in a similar place. And then I've got this one right here. Right here. All right, so now we're done with all of our dimensions here. I'm going to hit escape one time. Escape one time. Escape. There we go. All right, so now if we look at our dimensions, they look pretty good except for this one right here. This one is definitely wrong. So what we can do is we can go ahead and we can fix it. All right, so what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and we're going to change this so that it is the correct dimension. This is obviously not right. I'm going to double click on it. And there's some easy ways to do it. There's some hard ways to do it. I'm just going to delete this off. And I'm going to type in the following. Percent C, which is diameter. 1.688. And then enter. Or click in the black abyss. Just want to change that one to percent C. 1.688. Now, the last thing that we've got to do is we've got to put in a couple of dimensions here, here, and here. Let's go back up to that quick dimension. And we're going to click on this endpoint here, this endpoint here, drag it over. Beautiful. And we're going to go ahead and zoom in. Click on this endpoint here, this endpoint here. And place it. Last one is going to be our overall height. So that was from here to here. Now, you see how it wants to put it at an angle? We don't want that. So we're going to go ahead and we're going to cancel. And we're going to not use quick dimension, but we're going to go ahead and use linear dimension this time. And that way, if I click here and then I click here, notice what it does. It gives me a nice straight dimension. Right? Place it over there. Beautiful. So now last thing we got to do is we got to do one more dimension right here. And, you know, I'm going to use that linear again. I'm going to click here, click straight above. slide it over, and place it. Oops. Now it did not go where I wanted it to go. So now I can go ahead and I can use the shrink stretch. And I can just kind of move those dimensions around to where I want them to be. Hit escape 2 times. Okay. Now, we can get all fancy. And see how if I highlight this, see how there's a dimension line that kind of sits here? We could get all fancy and we could actually take and turn that dimension off, but I'm not worried about it right now. I'm going to leave it right where it is. And we can fix that later. So, and by later, I don't mean this drawing. I mean another drawing. So let's go in here and let's create this text right here, this fillet. Go text box. We're going to do a single line text box and we're just going to place it. Let's see here, following our height. It says height. We want 1/8. Enter. Angle. We want it at 0. And we're going to type in the following. All, capitals, all fillets are 0.60. All right. And click in the black abyss. And there we go. And then hit the escape key. So now we've got this part done. Last part you would do is go ahead and change the dimension or change the title here to Pulley. Black abyss. Click here. Change your name. Date. Plate number. Period. For me, it's our fictitious number of 9. All right. Up to the A. Save. And then export is your PDF. Here's your 900 drive. Fence here. And save it. Simple as that, guys. All right. And then don't forget to upload it to Schoology.